So hey guys, welcome to PAX, PAX Online. This panel is going to be over Collegiate Esports during COVID. I'm Dylan Liu, I'm CEO of Uconnect Esports. We're a sponsorship marketplace that allows brands to activate in college campuses and collegiate esports communities. And I'm just going to let everyone go down the list and talk a little bit about what they do, what their position is, and just make a general introduction.
Starting with who?
Yeah, with Bobby. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So my name is Bobby. I'm working on Flock Wealth financial services, but for millennials and Gen Z. I've also worked in the past in the hackathon and collegiate esports scene, and so that's kind of like my background there. Yeah. Ryan, yeah.
Ryan?
Ryan Marsh. I'm currently the operations executive for Intercollegiate Game Network. We've only been up for around, I think it feels like 4 months now. Gosh, time flies. So we're kind of new group focusing on collegiate esports across North America. And before that, I was the events coordinator for the University of Connecticut Gaming Club for about 2 or 3 years. And I also did a bunch of competitive Overwatch. Yeah, I think that's everything. I recently graduated, so that's why I'm not with them anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Mike?
I am Mike Aguilar, and I am the Director of Esports for the University of Oklahoma, having been developing since 2016 at OU, and have been approaching esports from the context of the macro view of the industry, bringing synergies for streaming entertainment, production, on top of the intercollegiate competition, as well as deep integrations for community engagement and programming, not only for OU's population, but heavy philanthropy and K-12 development in the state.
Cool. And then Kevin?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin. I do product and Scholastic partnerships here at Twitch, working on the Twitch student program. What we do is we help universities institutionalize gaming and esports on their campuses. And yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So as we all know, quarantine has affected, a lot of people, especially the esports industry. But for collegiate esports, it's been, a mix and match. There's been a lot of good things that have been happening, a lot of, not so great things that have been happening, a lot of things that we have to kind of adapt to, right? So one of the first questions I want to ask is kind of under the topic of the effect of COVID on each of you guys. So like you guys all come from different parts of the collegiate esports ecosystem. What are the biggest ways that you've seen quarantine affect your part of the collegiate esports scene, I guess? And just to give you guys some background, Ryan comes from Ryan, I'd like to hear a little bit about the student background from you. Mike, I'd love to hear about like how it's affected administration. I know like we've had a lot of conversations off camera about that. Bobby, you've worked a ton with brands. I think in the past you've also worked with Red Bull, right? Obviously a lot of those activations have changed. And Kevin, you have a really good overview of like the overall ecosystem, as well as how Twitch has been really popping because of everybody being inside and looking for things to do. So we'd love to hear a little bit about how that's affected you guys. But let's start with Ryan, since students are at the core of everything we do. So I'd love to hear how it's affected you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, disclaimer, like I said earlier, I graduated in May, so I'm not like as well versed in how people are preparing now for the upcoming semester, although I'm still kind of involved with my old college. But being the events coordinator for a college group when the entire on-campus events are canceled kind of sucks. We had planned, or like many other colleges, we had a big LAN event planned and had to cancel that. We also had a collaboration event with the spring concert, which was canceled, so we had to cancel that. And just some other things in development that we didn't really get to do because at the start of spring break, they said, don't come back to campus. And everything became remote. So it pretty much ended up being a lot of like just canceling plans and figuring out how we can move remotely. Now, granted, in this space, a lot of stuff is online already. A lot of colleges are using Discord and Twitch to do events, simple, like smaller events with just party games and things, and also streaming bigger events, which now, instead of having the event be local and streamed online, it's kind of all online.
Yeah. And
there's also one of the bigger things that I've seen is the groups kind of like mine that have sprung up from this. Intercollegiate Game Network was originally started as a response to all the colleges being like, well, we had to cancel our big LAN event, and now we don't have any kind of big event to promote for this semester. So Rachel Cronson from CMU started it and messaged a bunch of people being like, hey, do you want to do a big Discord event? And we ended up getting, I think it was like over 2,000 people joining the Discord in a few weeks, and then getting a bunch of panel people to come, a bunch of people to stream events, do a little bit of charity work, and a bunch of raffles. And it was really kind of a big event for everyone to come together when they couldn't have anything on campus themselves. So it was big pooling of resources, basically, because everyone's like, well, I got this, but I can't use it at our event anymore, so you guys can use it. Kind of ended up being that. And a big networking drive as well.
Yeah, and we'll definitely dive a little bit more into ICGN and what you guys have been doing. There's been a lot of online communities popping up. We'll probably talk about the next segment, but I'd love to hear, like, moving from students to direct administration. Mike, I'd love to hear about how the administration's been affected. Obviously, it's changed views on esports. Would love to hear your perspective.
Absolutely. So Ryan put out a lot of really good stuff as things that are echoed almost on every campus as ways to evolve in this landscape. And so on the administrative side, naturally COVID is amplifying the magnitude of potential inside of gaming and esports communities. And whether that's a student organization or administrative directive, it is elevating more awareness as we see traditional sports programs now getting reduced a little bit, as well as student life programming on everybody's campus. In general, just activations that are happening outside of each individual colleges. So College of Engineering can't program as much for their own student life needs for their big pool of students. So this is naturally putting a lot of attention on these other topics to find innovation for, ways to sustain some kind of business model. I hate to use the word revenue, but it matters when we talk about the business of keeping things running, in tandem with trying to stay sensitive to the cultural needs and the climate on the campus. And this is where this has created a really strong opportunity for both really successful program elevation and also the exact opposite with very dismal support for it, because now esports is a knee-jerk reaction topic versus a strategic development that had planning ramping up to it. Now it's like, what can we do? COVID, we don't want to furlough, we don't want to fire people, so let's just do esports. And instead of defining what that is, they just say do something. And it can spark the fire to build something of substance, but we also see it equally spark that and then be completely conceived differently, where they talk about focusing purely on the revenue stream instead of the heartbeat of the culture of gamers and the diversity of the people inside of it, because they think that it's a lot of times gamers can be defined as a singular term. Well, FPS versus MOBA, two completely different demographics. Right. Madden versus Animal Crossing, also two different completely demographics. And it's just like saying human, it's different. There's so much diversity opportunity, which is also a pretty big narrative on almost every single campus right now, especially with the social issues that have been across the globe in the last quarter, in regards to how do we create opportunities for equity building and inclusion. And so for us specifically at OU, this has helped us elevate the topic in regards to looking at other ways of creating curriculum branches and also further development in support of student programming, intramural spin-ups and alignments with those same narratives that are focused on growing community, looking at it from the mental health aspect of things to keep students engaged and still feel like they're part of a community despite the physical distancing.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So talking a little bit, since you mentioned revenue, I want to go to Bobby a little bit, because Bobby, so obviously brands are usually those forms of revenue. Sponsorship makes up the majority of the revenue streams for esports. So Bobby, like how have you seen not just in collegiate esports but just overall brands reacting and changing their activations because of COVID?
Yeah, so like one thing to remember is like there's two aspects to COVID for when it comes to brands. Like it comes down to revenue, it comes down to targeting and advertising, seeing how we can creatively come up with like different ways to integrate a certain brand. One thing to remember is like there's certain brands that just can't participate. COVID was not only a issue of like people not being able to meet in person, but it was also an international foreign relations issue. A lot of these brands that have factories in China were not able to deliver their product in the US. So not only can they not market, they can't even sell their product digitally if someone orders it online. And like that's something to take into consideration. So you have a lot of brands like MSI and HyperX and Cooler Master that just couldn't participate in interesting ways just because they just didn't have the bandwidth or the resources or the ability to convert any potential customer. But when it comes to the other side of things, of companies that are taking advantage of the solution, is all these companies that are now more focused on how do we create really in-depth activations by leveraging the fact that we're digital and we can do interesting things, such as DoorDash. So like I'm working with DoorDash right now, and we're working on a December like conference summit where literally in the chat we're just dropping like free food to random and partnering with brands. So like we'll partner with Pizza Hut and Burger King and all these brands and just drop random foods like, hey, respond with an emoji. And then like, because we already have their address, we know their home and we can just go up and just send them something right away while the event's happening. Another thing is like, how do we engage people and how do we not match to the experience of a traditional conference or an event, but how do we even make it better because we have this aspect of digital that we can take and leverage. So doing like live action events where you can actually change screens and see different viewpoints a lot quicker, and doing those types of activations is what we've been looking at. Second half of COVID, so we're looking at like April now. Things are not end of April, but end of, let's say, probably June. We're looking at a boom. Stock prices are back up. Everyone has money to spend. And we're looking at countless people trying to do activations in Collegiate, and it's been really exciting to see what creative ways people can like activate. There have been a few brands taking risks with in-person activations. I have not touched any of those activations by any means, but I think it's really exciting to see what not only brands are thinking of as a creative way to get engaged, but what colleges are pitching to us as brands of ways that we can do it. Like Cloud9 Watch Party, that was a great example of a really great activation that was like, and you guys had 10x reach because why? Because everyone's at home. What else are we supposed to do? And like, it's a good opportunity for us to leverage something that wasn't respected before and actually make it a really good experience. And even post-COVID, have people come back just because they enjoyed it the first time. And it wasn't something that we had the opportunity to showcase to people prior. But yeah, I think like that's kind of like where brands are, and like brands are just trying to also still figure things out. Like we equally don't know. But I think also non-traditional brands, think about like your Uber Eats or DoorDash, more streaming tools, Logitech and stuff like that, more than your peripherals and like, I think, and like energy drinks that need to be in person.
Right.
And so like, I think that shift needs to happen for colleges to like actually reach out to those brands as well. But yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. And then Kevin, obviously you have, you're kind of engaged in every facet of the collegiate esports ecosystem, but also streaming has kind of taken center and front stage during COVID because of the increase in users and stuff. Can you tell us a little bit more about your perspective on COVID from Twitch's point of view as well as Twitch student?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt to Bobby's point that streaming has become has dramatically increased in terms of traffic and people being more at home, and that's I guess like for us that we've been positively impacted in terms of like I guess overall business growth, but in my line of work with Twitch student, it's been very obviously very crazy as a lot of universities are trying to figure out how to navigate coronavirus. I don't think there's any. And there's no one's like every single school is having fires left and right. So we are emphasizing with that and trying to help universities build a digital experience for these students who are going back into the school year with no on-campus experience. So trying to find a way for students to get a lot of value out of their gaming esports program when a vast majority of that is kind of canceled.
Some things I wanted to kind of bring up, I think Bobby, we had a conversation, before about how we're seeing like the lowest levels of enrollment, or a lot of students are looking to take a gap year. Is that still? And if I guess like that was like a couple months ago, like in the summer, but do you know if like that's still going on, or what's going on? Yeah.
So something that you have to think about is like we chatted about that a few months, and now school started last week at a lot of campuses across the country. Main thing is your international students are not there anymore, which is a huge revenue driver for most universities, and that's something to be worried about. But for example, most state schools are pretty much equal, if not like probably under 5% enrollment. And your only issues are going to be your mega schools like your UT Austins and stuff like that will see a significant drop in a gap year, and then also your smaller high tier schools like Harvard and Stanford that are going to take the drop because they don't want to admit students that they denied previously. And so I don't think it's as much of an issue because those students are still in the same communities online digitally. They have access to those. So from a brand and an esports perspective, I see no change whatsoever moving forward.
I think one interesting. I don't know, Ryan. I know you just graduated. I don't know if you have any friends that are, still like going through that, or like if you've had any friends who wanted to take a gap year. But I would be super interested in seeing like the effect of, obviously those people are probably going to end up coming back to school. So I definitely see like after COVID, it's possible that like, we see a bit of a decline, then suddenly like a sudden explosion. And I'd really be interested in like brands taking advantage of that. But have you seen the effects of that yourself, like among your student population, or, yeah, I guess what's your thoughts on that, the gap year thing?
I know a few friends that have taken a gap year, like long before any of this kind of happened. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis of if you find that it would be helpful for you. Personally, I never really considered it just because of kind of how I had my whole plan going. Of course, COVID got in the way of that, but it's too late to do a gap year. So I have seen some mentions of kind of suggestions to take a gap year this year, or to do some other alternative, like if you do, because a lot of the college experience comes from being there, physically being there on the campus, and a lot of the cost comes into that too. So when you're in these situations where a lot of people are going exclusively online, some of the suggestions has been to try to go to a community college or some kind of cheaper college for a year. And I guess that would, I don't know exactly how that would affect the esports side of things for the colleges, but I've definitely seen that where there's kind of a suggestion of a gap year or just going to a different, cheaper college.
And I think it would also probably like affect a lot of people who like want to have walk for graduation. I don't know if that affected you, but like I know like some people say like, oh, let's do like a graduation on Roblox or something, and it's just like I didn't pay like $40K or something over 4 years.
I don't know what part would be good for that, but I can talk about our Minecraft graduation if there's a good point for that. I can tell you it went very well.
I think Ryan, what you're doing with IGCN, and like what you guys are doing there, that's kind of the point, right? Like it doesn't matter if you dropped out, you can still be involved in communities like that, right? Like, since everything's digital and it's not tied to that school university email, since no school takes us seriously yet fully, or some schools do, but like those things are still accessible by even students that drop to a community college. Like I have maybe 20 friends that took a gap year this year, and probably another 20 that went to a community college because it's the same experience. And like
there's definitely a lot of resources still.
They're still on the Discord channel of their original school. Like nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, the challenge that schools are facing right now, because a vast majority of how these schools make their money is that in-person experience that is now no longer a thing. So then you have the internet now in the last like 15 years that changed the way society operates and how these kind of relationships are being formed. And so the power of Discord, internet, you can tap in and really save yourself a ton of money while learning a lot of other things online through YouTube, Udemy, and Coursera, any other like types of online learning platforms that honestly, a lot of these schools aren't equipped to have the same ecosystem as the Udemy, Coursera, and such. And so the value of paying, let's say, $40,000 a year to go to an out-of-state school is not really viable anymore during this era. So that's kind of why we see this shift in people taking gap years, because they're like, if I'm just doing online classes, then I'm just going to go do online classes.
Yeah,
and
Yeah, and we've seen that in like companies as well, where like people are like, you know what, let's just like do remote even after COVID. Just like a shift. Like, it's just like forced a shift in how we kind of, um,
Yeah.
I guess it's shifted like the way we traditionally do things. Like the traditional like put on a tie, go to work kind of thing. That's kind of being like really shaken up. So like since we're talking about like how things are overall changing, let's talk a little bit about the innovations during COVID. So what are the most interesting, impactful ways you've seen the collegiate esports ecosystem innovate during COVID? And we can start that off like talking a little bit more about ICGN, and you guys can just like come in whenever, based on what you've seen.
Yeah, sure. I don't want to talk too long, so just stop me if it's get too crazy. But yeah, so Intercollegiate Game Network, or ICGN, we started, like I mentioned, in I think it was early March that Rachel kind of started messaging everyone. And the main idea of it was, hey, you all had to cancel your big LAN events, so why don't we do a big online event together? And therefore the Intercollegiate Game Night was born. And then it went very well, had a ton of people, a full, it wasn't 24-hour Twitch stream, but it was a pretty long Twitch stream with a bunch of people that we featured, big panels, all the full 9 yards. And then after, we're like, well, we have this big server and we have a bunch of people that are still interested in helping out. So what do we do now? And a few of us that were in leadership at the time said, like, why don't we keep going, keep doing what we're doing, foster an area for resources in the collegiate esports space, continue doing panels, game nights, giving people positions where they can learn and grow in their field. Because I don't know if we'll get to that part, but a lot of the collegiate esports space is a huge area to just learn. If you're doing graphic design, social media, you don't have to just be a player. Of course you can be, and if you're great, then props to you. You're probably better than me at Overwatch, but yeah, so we've been going for a few months now, and
yeah, you guys have done like panels, you've done like game nights. I know like a lot of people, like I don't know any like way that I would have met like Team Liquid people or like Cloud9 people.
Yeah, there's
like, something like that came up,
there's a lot of people there.
Discord,
I was surprised when there are people joining, like, oh, we have Discord staff in here. Can we get partner? There's.
I can tell you from I can tell you from a brand side, like ICGN was like the vanguard for like all these, like you see like people like Sab who are creating these like EG's Discord, all the I can tell you that ICGN was definitely like it was almost like you guys are sacrificing yourselves for us. Like we don't have like, I guess we're not brave enough to try this on our own day. For these students, a lot of these like innovations come from students, but like, like we're going to let them try it and end up being a huge success and just like create this wave of online activations and people really investing in Discord. Cause I think a lot of people are just like, you know what, it's COVID. We're just going to like dip out, I think you guys really started that way. So like props to you, but I know Mike has also, at University of Oklahoma, you just did a Make-A-Wish Foundation tournament. Do you obviously tell us a little bit more about that, but do you think Make-A-Wish Foundation like started diving into esports because of COVID, or were those conversations and interests were already there?
So first and foremost, like when we first founded the organization, I first vetted that first round of leadership. Culturally, I instilled a heart of philanthropy as a core fundamental of how we will do all things. Any default idea that we can't fill, we fill it with philanthropy as a means to give back and advocate. Plus, it helps us kind of defeat and combat against some of the stereotypes of gamers not being contributors right off the bat. And it's just a real good feel-good moment that you can't really describe until you've had it.
Right.
And so the Make-A-Wish League of Legends tournament that we did was purely for Oklahoma directly. And so the way that their organization is structured is they have a global initiative, national initiative, and then regional initiatives. And so there's an Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma, California, and so forth, or Make-A-Wish Oklahoma and all those things. So at the time, obviously it's summer intersession. This was a July event. And we just wanted a way to, one, give back and also just do something. Like we all had Zoom burnout. We all had meeting burnout. We all have burnouts about meetings. It's just got old, and said, let's go do what we came together for in the first place and just go play.
Yeah.
And then it just takes a little bit of effort to get that off the ground because historically we've had that production house in-house. We've had TOs in League of Legends for 3 years and partnered with one of the biggest local tournament organizers in League of Legends in the state and region, Get Wrecked. And so we brought their expertise in their community for advocacy and marketing. And then we tapped your shoulder for HyperX inclusion to incentivize it. And then we spawned $2,000 out of thin air for kids in our backyard. Yeah. And that was beautiful. Everyone felt great. And the competition was lighthearted and friendly. And the broadcast was great and streamlined and professional. And so speaking to the Make-A-Wish energy is they had a global initiative called Stream for the Wishes. And that was a global initiative. So every single division of Make-A-Wish across the state level or regional level or so forth was given basically branding, verbiage, legal guidelines and everything on how to activate inside of that, leveraging influencer style streaming, very similar to what we see with Extra Life culturally as a global initiative. Mm-hmm. Now, Make-A-Wish and things like Extra Life and these charitable events are all suffering too, as we primarily focus on the social injustice topics of Q2 and moving into people legitimately being furloughed, laid off, and having financial burden issues. And so naturally, a byproduct of that is also going to be hospitals and those that are taking care of kids that are terminally ill or have been dealt an unfortunate series of cards and just need a little bit of support further. And so there's plenty of things that we can all contribute to. But for us, the focus has always been keep it local, take care of our own backyard. And if everybody did that, then collectively we would all be much better versus looking at national campaigns where we can't see where the money is going to impact. And we know very well that these kids are probably somebody within my students' families or within the community of my neighbors and these things. And that's kind of the focus with that. So Make-A-Wish Oklahoma had not utilized that activation from the global campaign that kicked off in Q3 of 2019. And so they used this as a means to finally explore it because they just didn't know where to start and they weren't reaching out. And so because of that culture we instilled, we had a student reach out just to see if Make-A-Wish would be interested, only to find that campaign and create this opportunity. And then the student owned the entire execution. The only thing that I did was help kind of design the overlays and make sure that the logos were included and then creating the after action article to satisfy the needs of that sponsorship. Which was also a very big moment of pride because students are executing in the things that they're passionate about and they understand that philanthropic heart and why it is so essential, especially right now when we have plenty of people in our own neighborhoods that need help.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of the stuff that you obviously like. I've known about y'all's program for a while, and you guys always like dish out some really quality stuff. Really impressed. Like you guys give like students the opportunity to really like own those roles. You know, it's not like overbearing or anything.
No,
it's totally like I think your relationship with the students exactly how every university should be handling the relationship with students. But talking more about social change, I know Kevin, like during the COVID period, I don't know how long y'all's thing has been. Wait, I'm seeing. Okay, yeah, the meeting got upgraded apparently. Yeah, so Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about community and what you guys are doing with HBCUs? Obviously, that's something that's really recent. I don't know if that's because of COVID, but I know that's something that a lot of people are really excited about. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Community with an X is a nonprofit that we decided to partner with back in, I think it was April. Wow, time flies. Yeah. The X stands for the keyboard and console all share the same letter X, and that's the accessibility. That's the little hint of accessibility that's needed. And X is also a definition for Latinx and like other types of people of color and people of minority. And so that's why the X is there, just so to give some context.
That's amazing, by the way.
Yeah, we started working with them in April because we just like really got along with their team. Their founding team is incredible. And we started raising money for for students at HBCUs to continue their education from home through internet access and devices. We think we did like $200,000 in that month. And then from there, we were able to kind of come together and kind of formulate a long-term strategy with Twitch Student. And so we announced the HBCU Esports League, where we're partnering with them to running the first ever HBCU Esports League, with now building pipelines to give HBCUs students a competitive platform, but also work on ways to help HBCUs build official game and esports programs. So there's more to that's in the works. And then At the same time, we're also working with HBCU student leaders to help them build awesome clubs, just like how we've been able to experience it here at in what makes collegiate esports great is like through the student clubs and grassroots movements. So it's a top-down, bottom-up approach. There will be I can't announce too much since it's still being in development, but I think overall, like the three pillars that we've always worked on, that we've always leaned on was community, career, and competition through inclusivity, diversity, and collaboration, and now equity. And I think this is a way to do it. And the reason why we got involved is because the Black community has through IGDA, the IGDA research, Black community index about 83% of them play video games, and about only 18% of them make up the professional workforce in the gaming and esports industry. And so, whereas the white community has an index of 71%, but make up a higher majority of that side. So the goal is to then build some sort of system to help close that gap in some way, shape, or form. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. We actually have the first ever streaming one-on-one class at Johnson C. Smith University and Howard University starting next month. And so those
awesome.
are ways to then, outside of the competitive space, we're working on education and curriculum and actual accreditation that is super exciting to us.
Awesome. Yeah, really excited for what comes next for you guys. I guess Bobby, like obviously like brands, I think we've already talked a little bit about how brands are innovating. I guess like for Bobby and just like it's kind of open to everybody else, like what are some other like really exciting ways you've seen the collegiate esports ecosystem kind of change during COVID, like with all these online activations? I mean, some things that come to mind personally, I think SFSU ended up holding like the West Valorant tournament, which got hosted by the Team Liquid, official stream. So I see a lot of these there's been like a huge explosion of online leagues that have been like totally student run, like SEI, Southern Esports Invitational. I know there's like a couple other ones in the South where they're just because these teams like don't have a lot of like tournaments to go to or don't have a lot of people to play with, they're just like creating these big regional leagues that I've never seen before. I think it does have to do with like the changing dynamics of like the old entities that usually held these tournaments, and I think there's like probably like a little bit more of a gap in, I don't want to say power, but there's like some kind of void that people are rushing to fill. But I guess Bobby and anyone anyone else who wants to join in on that, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like speaking from brand side, is like just willingness to try new things, right? So like given the time, we don't know what the heck to do, like period, right? And like so when a school comes to us with a plan, we're willing to do it more than ever before. And like the willingness to cooperate between multiple brands is also new. Like imagine like Twitch and DoorDash and like 3 other brands working together on a campaign. The accessibility in order to get into these doors has never been lower, right? Because everyone's willing to try new things, do new things, and those relationships are going to last far past COVID. And we're going to be continuing to do digital activations between esports teams, food brands, like whatever, like streaming platforms, whatever else. And that's the exciting thing to see. I think like if you're someone that is a student that wants to do this in the future, like now is the time to start your league, start your org, start your Discord channel, start building, start developing things in the space, because people are more than happy to open the door right now because they're kind of open to anything, since we'll bite if it works for us, right? If incentives are aligned, we're gonna do it. I think that's the biggest now is the biggest opportunity to try something new and do something different. And I just want everyone to know that.
Yeah, and I think one interesting thing I think you told me once was there's also like the value of online advertising, like Facebook ads and stuff like that. That's I think at the time you said like the value of that is just like crazy right now. So like where some doors are open, like some doors are also shut, just because like almost nothing can beat the conversion rate of So I don't know if that still applies or what your thoughts are on it.
It's going away. I think like that is true to some extent. Like yes, your data is going to look great. I think the more important thing there is, though, because of the times, more people are bullish than ever and like kind of ignoring that type of stuff given the times. And so you need, as a brand, we need to activate on a community driven level, period. Like we need to be fully immersed into the conversation. Like for example, like at Red Bull, we did this crate drop experiment years ago when I was working there. And it was pretty much like a fake parachute with a large crate of Red Bull in the middle of a college campus. We can totally change that up and activate it like if it was a PUBG drop, for example, right? And like a crate drop in that game or Fortnite or whatever. Like that's an integrated campaign that people are going to remember to
that's awesome.
post,
I
right?
definitely remember if I came on my class and saw that.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Right?
It'd be
And
great.
like Facebook ads just aren't going to do that for you. Like I can run that once. I can spend like, yes, $10,000. I'm not going to be able to track it, but I'm going to get 100 user generated content posts. I'm going to get tons of people that will probably buy Red Bull, will know the product, will know how it tastes. And that's going to be a significant change. And the issue is the only brands that can do that are the bigger brands, right? And so they're the only ones that have the privilege of running experiments and maybe losing money on an idea. And so that's something that you have to think about as well, as like when you're pitching these ideas, does that company have the resources to go and try something? And now that's coming in the digital world. Like how does a DoorDash do that? How does like drops in the Twitch stream, Cash App, they're great. They're like free money, right? And like that's what they're known for, and that's what they do. And like they do that in Twitch channels, and like the top contributors Cash App on like some big streamers. That's awesome. And like I think people are trying to figure out these innovative ways, and those things are just going to stick. And like Facebook ads don't work for most brands or bigger brands anymore. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
So, do you guys do the rest of you guys have anything you guys like thought was like super interesting things that you've seen come out of COVID, or open floor?
I want to chime in here and talk about a little bit of the things that I wish I wasn't seeing as a byproduct of it. So we have a lot of both endemic brands and non-endemic brands in the space kind of activating. And that's all good thing, because we obviously need more visibility on this topic, continue to elevate the scene. But we also at the university administrative level, and not just OU or any other specific college that I'm referencing, but we do have a lot of players coming into the space that feel like their expertise in another industry is purely what's going to make them the strong asset for them to partner with for spending university funds to get something going, instead of taking the time to empower students and empower faculty and staff that are already on campuses, and allowing them to build something that is uniquely important and potent to the culture that pre-exists on our campus. Nobody can fault a school like UC Irvine, for instance. Everybody knows who they are. Everybody knows Mark Deppy and Kathy Chang, and amazing, additions and cornerstones to the foundation have launched multiple programs. But it's not a cookie cutter reference. It's not something that you can employ or deploy somewhere else and just expect it to be successful without massaging it to cater it to the specific cultures on your campus. I am in a giant cow pasture, for instance. I'm in Oklahoma. And so culturally, I don't have the same resources that I would have as if I was in Irvine, California. And there's a lot of administrators that are now obviously exploring this topic and diving in this too, again, as a knee-jerk reaction versus a strategic development opportunity to really kind of elevate the champions that they already have within their own walls, because they don't bear a title of PhD, or because they don't bear a title of being on a bankroll or being on the payroll already. And that's a huge oversight, because yes, that could theoretically be a savings in cost if you wanted to look at it from revenue and spin-up costs. But what you're actually doing is empowering and building the equity of your campus, and making students have the opportunity, providing them the opportunity of investing themselves and taking ownership of it with guidance and mentorship to build something that's truly unique to that campus, that will inspire other students and prospective transfers of wanting to be a part of it, versus here's this really polished thing that is kind of intimidating to gamers of introverted nature, who see this giant kind of titan come out of nowhere that has no tie-ins and no representation of student population, of student leadership, of grassroots energies, of the things that they have known prior to this stage, as a recruitment tool. So you have universities that obviously dive hardcore into varsity development, and then they focus on recruitment, and that's it. Whereas what's going to elevate and tell that story? Why not looking at production in journalistic and communication degree, students? We all have taught a lot of those energies. We all have business degrees. We all have typically something in advertising and marketing. And these are all organic and logical ways of building actual scholastic mission to incentivize coming to this campus and subscribing to this alma mater and what they're providing as their unique experience, regardless of a physicality state or a virtual one. So as part of the innovation product byproduct opportunities, this is where the academic components on campus can now look at this topic and say, well, you already have students that have been executing in production, and we teach, creative media production, and we teach broadcast and journalism in that way, photography, videography, sensibilities, fine arts for creating themes for a stream. These are all ways of organically tying in our expertise on the playground that is a college campus in the topic of esports when we look at the entire industry as the objective, not just a siloed topic of thinking that this is the viral component that's going to make us stand aside. Many universities now have esports. It's never truly ever been about having esports. It's always been about what you're doing with it.
And I think one thing that I always tell students, I think like with we talked about how many new entities are coming into the esports ecosystem. I think whereas the business side has kind of opened up, the school side has almost closed down a little bit, just because they're getting hit with so many requests and stuff like that. They're kind of almost not trusting people. So like the three things that, like, if any students are watching, like the three things I always look for are, do I see a Twitch student logo, or like, is there some relationship between them? Like, is it Twitch student approved or whatever? Is it run by former student leaders, or people who have been student organizers? And those are like the two big things that and also the third biggest thing I look for is, do they have a relationship with the organizers, or are they going straight to administration? Because administration is typically the newer set. But in terms of innovations, I don't know, Kevin, if you want to mention anything, but I know with like music festivals kind of going down and stuff like that, Twitch has been pushing like music concerts, like virtual music concerts. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, or anything else that you see that that you think is really cool that's coming out because of quarantine.
So like innovative things that are happening in this industry because of COVID.
Yeah.
I think a lot of I was able to connect with more people because of COVID. I think COVID has made it so that you have to go online, and therefore people who can't afford to go to these types of events can now connect with people in the industry a lot easier, as a lot of these teams, these organizations are building online presence now that can then create this team or like organization or whatever directly to the community, which is like super dope. You would have to like you don't have to shell out a couple $100s to go to an event plus hotel plus airfare and all those things anymore. I think that level of accessibility is critical moving forward, and that should not go away. That should continue to sustain itself because it's super cost efficient for everybody. Two is on the music side. I was able to work with the music team for a couple months after they signed the deal with SoundCloud. It was really cool to. I think one of the most awesome thing I worked on was I think his name was DJ Martin. I forgot his last name, but he kind of did his whole entire DJ set for like 6 hours in the middle of an empty football stadium, as if it was like a real crowd. And it was raining too, and he was just there for 6 hours by himself. And he peaked like 40,000 viewers, and he just like and then he used Twitch chat as a way to say like, hey, we filled out the entire stadium. It held only like 35,000 people capacity. So he said like, oh, we're beyond capacity on stream. So I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah. Stuff like that is like really creative, and that's what makes people stand out. On terms of like industry-wide movement stuff, I've been really keeping up outside of mostly putting out fires when it comes to how universities are building online presence and online engagements right now. Because again, like I said before, a lot of these schools are lagging behind on infrastructure to be able to do this. I think the only way that professors have an online ecosystem right now, correct me if I'm wrong, is through like Canvas and like Blackboard. Yep. And that's not as good as Udemy, Coursera, and YouTube and these other learning platforms. So I think that's kind of been their biggest challenge. Just like innovative stuff. We did some streaming scholarships, and we were able to like work with a couple students that actually are killing it on Twitch. So it's super cool to see like I met a student that we worked with that I think he just cleared like $6,000 last month in Twitch revenue.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's like a ton of money doing that part-time streaming Minecraft. And it wasn't even esports. It was just like, I just like making content. I'm just at home, and this little piece of like, we helped them with like onboarding and like some guides on how to start on Twitch, and then the kid just like ran with it. So I think these types of journeys are like really cool to see. And like and then lastly, we're looking at cloud gaming solutions as well to, again, not everyone can take a streaming course because of the $1,000 paywall, depending on what you're streaming. And so we're looking at like different cloud gaming solutions to be able to give licenses out to universities to give out to students who are taking these classes. So
Yeah,
more on that later, but
yeah.
yeah, that's kind of it.
Cool. Yeah, I think another like thing I just wanted to mention real quick. I think like baseball, like the it's MLB, right? The MLB has been like pushing pretty hard towards esports. I think they're trying to put a lot of money into the whole esports scene as well. That's just something like interesting that I saw. Obviously, MLB is like the fastest aging major like mainstream sport, so I can definitely see why like they would be the first to like really push hard. But obviously like the NFL has done stuff with Twitch as well, which is really exciting. But yeah, but I guess moving on to another topic. So online events weren't always the staple in the past, even though the majority of the community was housed there. Mainly Discord. Since quarantine, the majority of events have shifted to Discord. Are online events a permanent expansion of the collegiate organization properties, or do you think it's a temporary measure? Do you think, like, obviously we've innovated and grown this whole Discord events online thing a lot, but do you think it's a permanent addition? Like, is it going to be live events and Discord events, or do you think the moment live events comes back on, everyone's going to shift back? And I guess I'll give that question to Ryan first, just because you're most recently a student. Obviously, this affects ICGN because a lot of your stuff is purely like, obviously it's difficult. Maybe you guys can have a meet up at PAX, but
I would love to.
Yeah.
We all can,
Yeah.
when it's safe to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think there's definitely effect of a lot of people are definitely more aware of the many online tools that are available to enhance online events. Like, I'm sure there's plenty of people that did not know what Zoom was before this, or people that didn't know what Discord was before everything happened, or maybe even didn't know what Twitch was until a bunch of stuff started getting moved to Twitch. So there's definitely, I see in-person events, when it becomes safe to do so, they'll definitely come back in full force. But a lot of people now are more aware of the accessibility that online offers. A lot of people just can't go. I forget who had mentioned it earlier, but or I think it was Kevin that said like, oh, if to going to in person, especially at something like a college campus where you're mainly focused on the people at that college, depending on, I guess, what group is working with it, they'll definitely try to do it in person. But if you want something like between multiple colleges, or that affects many colleges, like conferences or something like that, there's definitely a undeniable case for having an online portion of it that increases the accessibility for it and allows a lot more people to to get involved with the event and the content that you're trying to share.
Gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, I would like to see, because right now, I think a big part of collegiate, like why there hasn't been as much money as we'd like to see, like in collegiates investing in the community, is just because of like a lack of properties almost. Like we do have live events. Obviously we see arenas growing and stuff like that, but just like the more things that are sponsorable, the more valuable that overall package is, right? I don't know if Kevin and Bobby and I think Mike's blacked out, but
I'm still here.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know what y'all's thoughts are on that. I know, Mike, you're doing some great things in Oklahoma. Kevin, Kevin, you have that overall like 9,000 foot view or whatever, and Bobby, you've also worked on it. So I guess just like whoever wants to jump in on this.
I'll get going, and I'll speak I'll speak at least to my experience with other universities, and I apologize if my camera cuts out. I'm still here.
all good.
So I think for OU, because of the amount of infrastructure we've built in regards to what we've done for the last 4 years in empowering students, and look at my camera acting up. I'm just going to kill that. So with all that's done, we can stand the test of time. I think, with COVID's ramp up, we already had plenty of energy built into online development. And then post COVID, we already had plenty of energy built into sustainment in a physical capacity. So COVID really was kind of a test of that idea and that strategy. And it's just showing that I think the only thing that we really truly lost is that we do 51 weeks of programming Smash weeklies. And now we obviously can't do that, but everything else could have evolved. Now there are energies doing Smash Online, but we all know Nintendo's netcode isn't ideal. So to say the least, but that's only one program that was really kind of significantly impacted. Everything else was able to convert online. Is it ideal? No, but does it work? Absolutely. And it still caters to a lot of what we're seeing statistically, not uniformly, but statistically, high levels of Gen Z who do have, and gamers that are obviously socially awkward or have more introverted nature. And so online speaks to them and allows them to be a part of something and aligned with something that is going to make it last post-COVID, because it absolutely is essential. Every university struggles with trying to create programming that will entice students to leave their dorms, to come out, to actually utilize the services on campuses, whether it's intramurals or, student life engagement programming or whatnot. And then we also start talking about, international students, which obviously is a hot topic in general, but even when we were pre-COVID and the controversy of all that regulation changes, international students would attend events. And that's also a big thing that has research in it in regards to a lot of international students never making friends outside of the context of their own culture or peers that come to the same campus, because it's such a different community and a different world. And so this language of gaming and esports transcends so many different barriers that the lessons that can be learned about development at a university, online presence, and things like this can almost all point to a gaming community and almost always point to the history of gaming, especially when we started going online in late 90s, early 2000s with BattleNet and everything else, was really kind of that it can thrive this way, and it can live without this. And so for a lot of the younger generation, converting to Zoom wasn't foreign to them. It wasn't that at all. They were having Discord watch parties already. They were on Ventrilo in the mid 2000s. They were on TeamSpeak forever. And so it's not like we were thrown into a world we didn't know. But the administration level, who was not part of that same generation, obviously has struggled to wrap its head around and then develop tools of engagement, which engagement is the part that's missing the most. How do I actually engage? Sure, we can do Zoom. And at the beginning of COVID, a lot of administrators learned really quickly that there's tons more that needs to be done versus just creating an online presence. It had to be marketed. It had to be developed. You had to foster communication and engagement. You had to make it fun. And you had to let go of some of the traditional norms of what you would expect in representation. Maybe a professor or a faculty member needed to spice up their background and bring a little bit more of their own personal character out to help engage. And then we start talking about K through 12 and that short attention span on top of it. So I think that that there's plenty of elements that will sustain past the COVID impacts to online, but there will be some that do disappear because a lot of people are just waiting for that time for that vaccine and for us to return and aren't letting go of it. And they're sitting at a place where they might have the financial buffer to sustain the duration of this and are just doing what they can as a stopgap. But they're going to revert a lot of that energy back the minute that the time changes, because that's still where they know they can capitalize on things.
Yeah.
And they're not going to adapt to it.
Gotcha. I guess we're approaching the end of the panel, but do you guys have any quick statements about how you see really quick statements about how you think these new innovations will last through, if not, I guess we'll just close it out. I do want to give everybody a chance to give a quick shout out to something cool that's coming up for them that you want people to know about. I guess we'll start with Bobby.
Yeah, a lot of my stuff is under the radar right now. I got a few cool collegiate projects coming out with you, Dylan, of course, as you know. later this year. And then actually, my last day at my full-time job is today.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Or when we're recording this. I don't know when you'll watch
Yeah.
this, but
Yeah.
we will. So I'll be launching my new company that is Flock, Flock.money in a few weeks.
Awesome.
So hopefully by that.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Ryan?
I'm just chugging along at Intercollegiate Game Network, so nothing much now. If anyone interested in checking us out, you can head to our Twitter page, or Twitter, Twitch, Facebook. It's all just Uni Game Network, or you can go to discord.io, not GG, unless we've got partner by the time this goes up, but I doubt it. Discord.io/Uni Game Network, and reach out if you're interested in working with us, or just come and chat. We got some stuff in the pipeline, but nothing to share yet.
Okay, awesome. Kevin?
No, just check. I guess the only thing is check out the HBCU Esports League. More to come there. Hit me up at twitchstudent@twitch.tv if you have any questions about how to build a gaming esports program at your university. Happy to help.
And Kevin also hosts a panel, I think, every Wednesday.
Yeah, I have a stream. I have a stream every Wednesday from. God damn it, Dylan. I have a stream every Wednesday from 6 to 8. I just kind of talk whatever I want to talk about, anywhere from esports to like finance to random stuff about League and Valorant and whatever games that's interesting. But yeah,
he has his own Discord community, and he brings on guests to talk about like various topics. So it's a pretty good content. And then Mike, do you have anything you want to shout out? Or
Yeah, let's see if my face will come up for a second.
Yep.
So obviously we're continuing to elevate for Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma specifically, but I'm also looking at initiatives within K through 12 in a very deep, meaningful way. And as well as elevating as much of my collegiate peers in the space, which is who I've been since 2016 and starting on this journey. And so we're just continuing to elevate that, and I'll just be a showcase through the culture that we have instilled in our students as they go out and represent exactly what we wanted to achieve by contributing to this industry as it continues to grow.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess I'll give a quick shout out to my company, Uconnect Esports. We're a sponsorship marketplace that allows brands to activate across all these awesome collegiate communities. We work with Twitch, we work with HyperX. A lot of the Cloud9 stuff that they've been doing collegiate is also through our platform. So everyone's laughing because I'm a huge shill, but yeah, check us out if you're a brand that wants to activate collegiate. But besides that, thanks so much for all y'all's for giving y'all's time, and I'm really looking forward to what you guys have in store. Awesome.
So, thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
Always fun to talk.
Cool. Thanks, guys.